Hey, welcome to another Le Mans Ultimate Guide. This time we're doing GT3 at Imola. I'm driving the Aston GT3 this time. It's a bit of a handful to drive, but it's quite quick around here actually. Each of the GT3s will handle slightly differently, but everything in this guide will still apply to all of them. For the first turn, we're looking for either where that service road is on the right side there, or where the track begins to turn, and those are our reference points for braking. And we're braking just as the track begins to turn to the left there, all the way on the outside the track, then trailing off the brakes to the inside, using almost all of the inside curb here, not going all the way up to where that stepped green part of the curb is, because we go too far and we will invalidate the lap. But we really want to bring the car to the left here, not go too far to the right, because we want to open up our entry line slightly for this turn to the right. Again, using most of the inside curb, not going too far up it, because you can invalidate the lap once again. Most of this track you have to keep at least two wheels within the white line. This applies here too. And then on exit, carry your speed. You can go full throttle through there if you get a nice line. And in here, you want to make sure you bring the car slightly back towards the middle of the track so we can open our entry line once again for this turn. This turn you can also take flat out with a good entry line. I wouldn't really use too much of this curb because it can kind of unstabilize the car a bit, but use all of the colored curb there and you can take the turn flat out, carrying your speed all the way to the outside of the track, making sure that you keep your left side wheels within the white line, or that's an easy invalidation. For the next chicane, we've got some more precise lines and using a lot of the curbs again, but starting off, we're looking for that Goodyear sign on the right side of the track there, braking about a car length before we get to that. Also, the 50 board on the fence can be used as a reference. Not braking too hard here, just making sure we're slowing down the car, bringing it over the left curb here. We don't want to carry too much speed in, we don't want to go too far to the right after this apex. We're keeping the car slightly towards the left right here, aiming towards the middle of the track, and as soon as we get past that curb, right at this point here, we're going to start braking to slow down the car a wee bit more. Don't want to carry too much speed into this next turn because you'll just go wide on exit. So slow the car down a bit more and then come off the brake to let the car turn. Once again, using most of this inside curb, not too much. You want to keep your left side wheels on or within the white line to keep the lap valid. And only after the apex getting back on throttle. It's so easy to understand going onto the sand on exit here. Again, on exit right here, keeping your right side wheels within the white line. Now, for this hairpin up here, we're looking for the service road on the right side of the track there, braking about a car length after we get past it, and we're going to aim for a very late apex into this turn. It's very tempting to go early, but I'd say go for a later apex right about there, and you can have a straighter exit getting harder on throttle and carrying more speed out of the turn. If you apex early, you're going to have a tighter exit, you're going to have to turn more getting on throttle, there's a risk of oversteer. You're just not going to have as great of an exit. And make sure on exit that you keep your left side wheels within the white line once again. Coming out of these tighter turns in this car, you have to be quite careful on throttle. It's very slidey on exit, it's easy to get oversteer and lose exit speed. And some other cars like the Ferrari, they're a bit more stable, so you're just going to have to judge it depending on what car you're driving. Here we're braking about where that 50 board is, or where that light patch of grass is on the outside of the track there, just before we get to that. There is quite a precise line to take through here. Use a bit of curb to help rotate you around. If you enter it too wide, you're going to end up wide on exit. You take too much curb, it's going to maybe invalidate your lap or push you out wide. Get on throttle a little bit too early, you're going to have to come back off throttle like I just did there to make sure that you don't go wide on exit. Keep your left side wheels within the white line there. I'd say that's one of the more difficult turns to get right on this track. This section down here is also quite a fun one. We're going to start getting onto the brakes just after we get past the curb, carrying quite a lot of speed into this turn. On this lap, I cut a little bit over this inside curb to try shorten my line, but I actually find that going slightly around the curb is a lot smoother and I find it's better to drive. So I would probably suggest to kind of flow around the curb, getting on brakes, having a smooth transition through this section. Cutting over this curb causes a little bit too much instability, I think. Alright, at this point you want to keep your right side wheels within the white line, keeping the lap valid, and do come out wide to this point because you want to open up your entry line for this turn here. Using almost all of the inside curb, you can cut over it to shorten your exit line, and be careful, it's very easy to flick into oversteer on exit here. This car can get really floaty coming out of there, so just be careful, balance your steering and throttle inputs to avoid getting oversteer, and then once again on the exit right here, keep your right side wheels within the white line. Now we're coming up to the one and only turn on this track where you can cut over the white line. First we're going to look for where the curb starts on the left, where the coloured part of the curb is. We're going to brake just before we get to that, coming out onto this curb to open up your entry line for the chicane. And you can cut a lot of this first apex here. This time it's not the white line you want to worry about. You want to keep your left side wheels on the left side of the yellow sausage curb, and that's kind of where the limit is, cutting as much of it as you can and not carrying too much speed in, because you kind of want to open up your entry line just a little bit for the exit of the chicane right here. Mid chicane you might need to touch the brakes just a little bit to cut off some extra speed to make this exit turn, and for this apex it's a little bit different. Your left side wheels should not cross too far to the left of the yellow sausage curb. If you go much further to the left of where that green arrow is, your left side wheels, then you'll get an invalid lap. So use the yellow curb though to shorten your line and then get back on throttle, just going past the apex. And you might need to catch just a little bit of oversteer on exit, but if you took a nice line, you should be quite stable on exit, allowing you to get on throttle just after you get past the apex, carrying your speed all the way to the outside, as we just saw, once again, keeping your left side wheels within that white line. Right, now we're going down to the final couple of turns. This time we're braking almost as soon as the car is straight along this curb. There's a DHL board there, and there's also that patch of dirt on the right side of the curb we can use as braking references keeping all the way on the right side of the track until the last moment where we start to turn in. We can use some of this inside curb here. Just be patient, don't get on throttle too early, you might snap into an oversteer or push yourself out wide out of the track boundaries. Keep those left side wheels within the white line, but go as wide as you can to the right within the limits to open up your entry line for this final turn. You don't really need to brake that much into this final turn. Turn in just before you get to the end of this green curb, and you can use some gentle braking here to cut off enough speed to get through this turn and also to help rotate the car through the turn. Using some of the inside curb, I wouldn't suggest use too much of it because that can unstabilize the car a bit too much for the exit, costing you some exit speed. Then getting on throttle just after apex, carrying yourself to the exit, avoiding getting too much oversteer there. You might have to balance your throttle inputs, and for the final time, maximizing the amount of track you're using without carrying your left side wheels outside of the white line. Now from this point forward, you're just keeping your line as smooth and as short as you can all the way to the finish line to cut off as much time as you can. Going too far to the left there will cost you a few hundreds or thousands, so just make sure straightest line as you can all the way to the line, and then you start a new lap. So that's a lap of Imola. I'm going to play through the whole thing again without any interruptions, and then after that we're going to come back for a pit entry guide, so I will see you then. And now for the pit entry of Imola, you take the final turn just like you normally would, and there'll be a white line that goes across the track right here, and you're going to be braking about a car length after you get past that line. Then you're hard on the brakes all the way until you're 60 km per hour at the pit line. And that's the guide complete. This has been quite a difficult track, honestly. This car is such a wild thing to drive. It slides around all over the place, and I find it a lot more difficult to drive than something like the Ferrari. But I have also gone a lot faster in this car than I did with the Ferrari. And there's a simple 2 to 3 tenths that I actually missed on that lap due to some turn entry mistakes that I made. Thanks for watching my guide, and I'll see you again next time.